Hello, welcome to another edition of Going the Distance with Go Long. Go Long is an accountability coaching via texting service. So it is situational support that fits into your life, not someone else's. And it allows you to have life get in the way and still give you a plan B or a plan C when your plan A doesn't work out. I am here with Janet Kennedy, who is known on Instagram as NYC Sleep Doctor. And she is a sleep psychologist. And sleep is something I feel like it's having its day right now. For better or worse, it's having its day. And we're going to talk about some myths, and we're going to actually get into a little bit of the basics about things that you may not be aware of, and we'll cover a couple of myths here and there. Now, with that, Janet, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, sleep psychologist, is that what you dreamed up of, no pun intended with the dreaming, when you were growing up? Tell us how you got here.
No, for as long as I can remember, I wanted to do some kind of psychology therapy work. Maybe it was going to be art therapy. Maybe it was going to be research. Maybe it was going to be working with autistic kids for a while. That was one thing I wanted to do. But ultimately, when I landed in my internship at the VA hospital in Manhattan, I sort of rekindled my interest in behavioral medicine, which is sort of the intersection of psychology and primary care or medicine in general. So I loved my internship there. I was working for about half of the year in primary care, helping veterans who were experiencing, depression or needed to get connected with mental health services. And we did stop smoking groups and things like that. And then shortly after I finished my internship, they hired me to be the psychologist in primary care. And when they first brought me in, they said, "We want you to solve sleep. Sleep is a huge issue. Everybody's taking boatloads of Ambien." At the time, Ambien was it was still under patent, and so it was very expensive, and they were concerned. They wanted to offer an alternative and really, try to solve this behaviorally, because ultimately what I discovered in all of the research that I did into finding a good treatment protocol is that medication solves the symptom, or it addresses the symptom of sleeplessness, but the treatment that I specialize in, which is a cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, that actually addresses the underlying issues so that people can really change their behavior, their psychology, their physiology, because it allows the body to sleep, and you're really correcting things instead of just masking them. So I worked at the VA then for about 8 more years after my internship, and created a treatment program there. And every time I'd go out or talk to anybody about what I was doing, they were just like, "How do I get that? I want that. I need that." And it really wasn't so widely available. And then I reached a point where I needed some more flexibility as I was having kids, and wanting to, have a little more balance. And so I started my private practice, and it seemed just like a no-brainer to make that a sleep-based practice, because there was a market for it. There was a real need, and it was also something I really enjoyed doing, because when you help people learn how to sleep again, learn how to trust in their body's ability to do this thing that they need to do, it's really life-changing, and you get to be part of that. It's really rewarding. So yeah, that's how it all began.
So we're going to get into the sleep trust thing, because when we had our pre-call, that was just like something that like blew my mind, because I never thought of sleep like that. But one thing I just want to add is that this interview is for informational purposes only, does not constitute any provider-patient relationship. If you want to engage with Janet, we will have all of her contact information in the notes, and we'll talk about it at the end of the show. So let's just make it clear about that. So before we get into the sleep trust thing, maybe we can just take it back to the beginning because there's sleep medicine doctors, there's sleep psychiatrists, there's sleep psychologists, and maybe there's other sleep oriented professionals that I'm leaving out. So maybe can you demarcate between the three and whatever any other sleep professionals I need to kind of incorporate in this?
So the sleep medicine doctors are typically ENTs, ear, nose, and throat doctors, or they are pulmonologists or neurologists. And what they are doing is looking at what's going on physiologically while you're sleeping. Do you have sleep apnea or some other breathing issues? What is your sleep architecture? Are you hitting all of the right marks while you're sleeping? Is something getting in the way physiologically or neurologically? I do not do that. I'm not a medical doctor. So when you go to a sleep physician, it's typically with some kind of sleep disorder in that sense, a physiological sleep disorder. That doesn't mean you don't have a psychological or a behavioral sleep concern or disorder, but because they often coincide. But the distinction is that a sleep psychologist is going to work with you on insomnia, which or non-restorative sleep, middle of the night insomnia, or even hypersomnia, which is sleeping too much.
Oh,
Those disorders have a a huge component that is psychological and can be addressed with therapy, and is best addressed with therapy versus medication. And a sleep psychiatrist is probably somewhere in between. They may be, I don't know that there are certainly psychiatrists who specialize in sleep, but that is typically more around medication for sleep because psychiatrists these days, with some exceptions, don't do a tremendous amount of therapy.
hmm. Okay. No, that's really helpful. So let's talk about the trust thing and sleep. So take us through how did that become kind of your like mantra, so to speak?
Well, basically, what happens with insomnia is, you know, normal sleep varies quite a lot. And I think of sleep as like a bell curve. You have those nights that are just like amazing and you want to replicate them, but those aren't actually your typical night either. And then you have the terrible nights, which are also outliers. Those are not your typical night either. Most of your sleep is going to fall in the middle and be good enough. And the trouble is, once you have enough of those really bad nights, you start to get upset. You get scared that you've lost the ability to sleep. You get scared that you're going to mess up at work, or you're going to get sick, or you're going to get fired, or you'll be homeless. Like, it's very easy to spiral out of control into all sorts of doomsday scenarios because when you're not sleeping, it feels scary. So what then happens is, the body is designed to right itself. You have a bad night, and so you're extra tired. And that extra fatigue, which we call sleep pressure, is designed to help push you back into a normal rhythm the next night. The problem is we get in the way of that. We do things like move our alarm later, get extra sleep to make up for it, or we nap, or we go to bed early the next night, or we drink tons of coffee, or we do lots of research about all the horrible things that are going to happen if we don't sleep. And all of that messes up the natural reboot that our body is supposed to do. And we get stuck in a more prolonged sleep disturbance. And basically, the way I look at it is that you do need to trust your body to be able to sleep, because when you try to sleep gets, you end up in a power struggle. Sleep is like, okay, no, I'm not going to comply with that. You're chasing me. I'm playing hard to get. And the more you chase after it, the faster it runs away. So you really have to learn how to trust again that your body can do this. And the other trust piece is that, you know, we've evolved to be to prioritize safety, right? Our cave people ancestors were not the ones who went to sleep and were just like, it's all going to be okay. They were staying up and making sure that all the predators were, you know, at a safe distance, and that, you know, they weren't, you know, it wasn't too cold, or, you know, like whatever. They were taking care of themselves before they went to sleep. And that ensured that they would wake up and propagate the species. The chill cave people, not so much. Like they were not our, they were not our forebears. So what has how that gets translated today is, you know, in order to let go and fall asleep, which is a very vulnerable state, right? Like you're not conscious. Things, you know, like you have to
Right.
be able to feel secure enough that you're going to be okay to let that happen. And, you know, what constitutes danger for us now, it's not predators. You know, we might be, you know, concerned about locking doors and windows and things like that, but it's also stress. It's also the state of the world. It's also whether we're going to fall asleep and feel okay tomorrow. And so that threat
Hmm.
becomes this huge impediment, and you struggle with it, and it just inflames the situation. And lo and behold, you can't sleep. And then again, that trust is eroded. So, you know, I think about it in terms of like people come to me in a power struggle with their sleep, and they leave in a partnership with their sleep so that they learn how to support it and also hand over the controls, because no matter what you do to take care of your sleep, that moment between awake and asleep is not in your control. Your body does that by itself. And the more you're watching to see if it's going to happen, or praying for it to happen, or analyzing why it's not happening, the worse things get.
Okay, so much to unpack there. I think, no, but I mean in a good way. So you talk about that they come to you not trusting the sleep and then they become partners with their sleep. Is it fair to say that in that process, you're dispelling myths along the way?
Absolutely. So, you know, there's so much news out there about sleep these days, and a lot of it is scary. So if you don't get X number of hours of sleep, you're going to have dementia, you're going to die early, you're going to be overweight, you're going to, you know, who knows what. Um, and, you know, this is real science, but it is also not reported in mainstream media in a way that allows people to understand the true meaning.
Well,
So,
that doesn't give clicks. That's not going to generate clicks.
exactly. You know, reporting the mean and standard deviation is not going to get you a click, right?
No.
But the fact is, going back to the bell curve, you know, when they say 7.2 hours, it that's a mean, and there is a standard deviation, and you're probably in there because most people, that's what a standard deviation is, you know. And the message from those news articles is, you know, the way the good message is, yes, sleep is important. Let's prioritize it. Let's take care of it. If it's not happening for you, yes, figure out why, do something about it. You know, and no longer can we just rely on, you know, I'll sleep when I'm dead mentality. Like that's not healthy. But if you're a person who values sleep and health, and now you have this message about how you're not doing it right, or it's not perfect for you, and all you need is an extra 25 minutes when, you know, maybe your whole life you've slept fine at 25 minutes less than the mean. You
Right.
know, then you try to fix what's not broken and you end up with a terrible mess.
Yeah. All right. There, there's a lot there. And I think that the point you make about like that you're not, you are within the standard deviation. And if it works for you, why are you trying to fix it? Because when you're trying to overcompensate, you know, I mean, it's like when you have an injury and then and the body finds a way to overcompensate, and then you end up causing another injury because the body was trying to overcompensate. And so the other thing you said that I thought was fascinating is that normal sleep varies significantly from night to night. And I think that that might be, I mean, that was certainly news to me when you said that. So
Hmm.
maybe you could talk a little bit about that, that even though you can go to bed, at the same time because of course that's one of the things, you got to have the same schedule every day. So let's assume you do all that
Hmm.
and you follow the same schedule, the same wind down routine and all the things.
Well, things that can affect your sleep, your health. So, you're getting a cold, your hormones, female hormones in particular, but also male hormones and stress hormones, by the way. So, temperature affects your sleep, allergies affect your sleep. Um, you know, the time of year affects your sleep. Well, the number of hours of daylight, what time the sun sets and comes up in the morning, whether you're sleeping in a hotel, whether you are anticipating a trip the next day or a deliverable or a performance or something. So all of these things you're not sleeping in isolation. Your sleep is responding to your overall experience and what is required of your body and your mind. So it's part of this entire system, and it's going, you don't feel the same way every single day. Even your exercise performance is not the same every day. Some days it's off and you don't know why, or your appetite or your digestion or, anything. So why do we expect sleep to be this formula that our body isn't designed um, to accommodate?
I think that it's kind of like maybe where mental health care was about 5, 7 years ago, where people, like, I know that, like, so I was there during 9/11. I saw the second plane hit,
Okay.
and I was at an investment bank, and they offered like group counseling sessions and everything. And if you went, you didn't really talk about anything. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there was no way. And if you were going to therapy, you definitely did not tell anyone. But now people much more openly talk about getting mental health assistance, going to therapy, all of that. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that sleep is not there yet. I think sleep it's its own category, and people feel like, oh, I need to get help with sleeping. Like, that sounds dumb,
Mm-hmm.
right? When in fact, like,
Yeah, because it's something your body is designed to do and it should just happen, except
right,
that's another myth, right?
right.
It is something that we do have to take care of. And there are a lot of ways that we um, sort of get in the way. Our lifestyle and culture today is not really conducive to healthy sleep. We have to establish limits and boundaries and protect sleep from just the light bulb, for God's sake, but
Yeah.
let alone your phone and the fact that you can work 24 hours a day, anytime, anywhere. Those things do impact your sleep. It used to be you went to work, whenever you got off work, maybe it was late, maybe it was, not. You went home, there wasn't a whole lot you could do.
Right.
And then you had this enforced separation where you could wind down. And now we don't have that anymore. In fact, we kind of ramp up the stimulation when we're home because we're working, we're watching TV, we're texting, we're social media scrolling, we're doing all that at once on multiple screens. And then we expect to dive into bed with our brain sort of on overdrive. And the brain needs a wind down, it needs an off ramp from the day. It can't switch gears that fast. And so what ends up happening is people then get upset that they're not falling asleep the second that they turn off all their stuff. The brain isn't turning off, and then they turn to medication to do that for them.
The thing that I talk about with my clients is around like a buffer activity. And what I mean by that is if you're driving in your car going 80 miles an hour and you slam on the brakes, your brakes are going to give out sooner,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if you're going 80 miles an hour on the freeway and, you see things far enough ahead where, you just like gently tap on the brakes so that instead of going down like this,
Mm-hmm.
you're going more,
Mm-hmm.
like that, right? Your brakes are going to last longer. And I try and use that metaphor for sleeping, that if you're working on your laptop until, 10 o'clock at night, and regardless of whether you're doing it in bed or not, because I live in a place where I can work from an office in my
Mm-hmm.
house. Not everybody has that luxury. But if you're going 80 miles an hour on the laptop, whether it's doom scrolling or working or whatever it is, and then you like shut it down and you're like, all right, time to sleep. Maybe 5 minutes of washing your face, brushing your teeth,
Mm-hmm.
but essentially doing that, you're not putting your body in a position
Correct.
to do that. So that's kind of the metaphor that I
I use
use.
that highway metaphor too.
Oh, do you? No
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, I do.
No way. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I feel like, all right, yeah. But it's something for people to understand. Like, you're going to like trash your brakes
Yeah.
if,
Yeah.
you just keep slamming on them, as opposed to being like, okay, I know I want to go to bed at 10, so it's 7:30. What do I need to wrap up by, say, 8:30?
Right.
So that this way I could start going,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the other thing is, like, if you are filling your brain with content until the moment you have to relax in bed, then all the things that have been sort of pushed out of awareness are going to flood you as soon as
right,
you relax. And I see that with women a lot. I mean, women, especially in sort of like the child rearing years or the sandwich generation years,
yeah,
especially because, you're just going at it and you don't have time to remember everything. And then you're like, well, now I have to sleep because that's what I've got to do right now.
right.
And you can't, because you just get overwhelmed with all the extra that didn't have room during the day.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of what I try and talk to people about is like, what's your strategic subtraction?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that the first exercise I do with all my clients is a pie chart. And I want to know how you're spending your time today and what you want that to look like 6 months from now.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I like the pie chart is that if you want a slice to get bigger, then another slice has to get smaller,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it forces you to prioritize, to say, like, if you want to make sleep a thing. So let's say someone's like, yeah, I work until 10 o'clock and then I like go to bed and then I toss and turn and everything else. And I said, okay, but you want your sleep to get better. It's like kind of understanding that there are certain things that you can do. Now, it doesn't mean that there's no guarantee that you won't need additional help, like going to someone like yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I don't make those promises that this will cure everything, but at least try it and put yourself in a position so that this way, when someone comes to someone like yourself, they could at least talk about it,
Yeah.
right? In a way of, I've tried this, and maybe I'm not doing it perfectly. And, and there's certainly, like, I am not a sleep expert, right? There's probably certain things that could be done, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at least they can have a more informed conversation with you.
Sure. But the other piece of what you're saying that I see a lot is maybe that person doesn't need to go to bed at 10,
But that's
like,
true too.
because they're allowing all that time to fall asleep and they're really just tossing and turning, and that's wasted time. And if they took that time to wind down and went to sleep when they were ready,
Mm-hmm.
then they would probably end up getting more and better sleep than they're getting with this sort of struggle time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. And I think that the other issue that leads to is, like, if you're in a relationship where you share a bed with someone,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there are challenges with that. So, like, I've mentioned this on my show before. Like, we have more bedrooms. So the thing is that, like, we might start in the same room, and then he goes into the other room because I toss and turn and everything else, and he sleeps like a rock. But I want him to get a good night's sleep, and it's not like any indictment on my marriage that in the middle of the night when my husband gets up to go to the bathroom, that more times than not he ends up in another bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
Like that just makes us happy. Like, what do you see in terms of research and and like your practice? Because I feel like sometimes the schedules, it's like, oh, we have to be on the same schedule.
You absolutely do not. And that will, you know, especially if you have different chronotypes, if you're actually biologically set to different schedules, somebody's going to be in bad shape if you enforce that rule. Like these are more myths that, a healthy marriage involves, necessarily sleeping in the same bed all the time. Intimacy and sleep are not the same thing. And, as long as you're paying attention to intimacy and not just sex, but like closeness and and how you're feeling about each other and how you're communicating, um, I, maybe it's better to sleep apart. Why would you're going to be happier and less snarky with each other if you're sleeping well, for sure. But I also think like, it is harder to sleep with another person than it is to sleep alone for most people. There are some people who really enjoy that security feeling and that's great. But most people who sleep with a partner sleep better when they're alone. And so there are all kinds of ways to get creative around that. For me, I use a sleep mask
Uh-huh.
because my husband comes to bed later than I do, and he has for the entirety of our decades together.
Right.
And, we went through a period where early on, he'd leave the light on. He'd come in and turn the light on and then leave the room
Oh,
and then
geez.
come back. And I was like, why are you doing this to me? And, eventually with a, a good quality sleep mask, it doesn't matter to me because now the light is on. He can come in and not crash around and wake me up with noise. And I'm none the wiser. So like you find these strategies. Some of them can be super simple. Some of them may involve, another room. It may involve getting a sleep study and a CPAP or a mouth guard for snoring. Like,
May
all
involve couples therapy.
yeah,
Yeah, I
maybe.
mean, in terms of like figuring out if you can't have that conversation around, oh, we have to, in terms of being on the same schedule or someone being like, hey, when you come in and you turn on, because my husband is a lot more sensitive to movement and noise, whereas
Hmm.
I'm more sensitive to light, right?
Hmm.
So there's different things that happen if one of us goes to bed earlier than the other one
Hmm.
to kind of compensate for that.
Yeah. I mean, you find your way. And I think of just being willing to be creative about it. And the compromises don't have to be painful. You just,
Right.
but you have to be open. And, like I've had people who really, it's really important to them in the couple to have time in bed together at bedtime. And so that means either, the person who doesn't fall asleep as early needs to get up after the partner falls asleep, or the partner who's sleeping needs to wear an eye mask so the person who's awake can read. Like that person who isn't naturally able to fall asleep at that time should not be lying there in the dark suffering. Like that is bad for sleep.
Yeah, something else we've tried recently that I think we're continuing is like when we travel, instead of getting like the king, getting two queens.
Hmm. I
Because,
love doing
yeah,
that.
and I mean, because the other thing is that I like to sleep when in the cold.
Mm.
And almost always you turn on the AC and it's cold when you go to bed and then it shuts off in the middle of the night because they have it on a motion sensor and it annoys the holy living shit out of me, right? And then I'm sleeping next to someone who's a human radiator,
Yeah.
right? And so we've started doing that
Mhm.
and I'm digging it.
Yeah.
Um, I'm totally digging it. It's great. So, all right. One of the other things that I think, you touched upon is like perimenopause, women over 40, sandwich generation. And they're already under so much stress. You've talked
Yeah.
about this. And your hormones are completely going wackadoodle for whether it's because of you're going through perimenopause or because you're under so much stress. So maybe
Hmm.
you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. I mean, it's a huge issue and it's a big part of my practice. And, first and foremost, it's real and it is not in your head. And the solution is a team approach because, you know, you need to be talking to your doctor. And if your doctor isn't believing you, you need a new doctor who specializes in this stuff. And there are more and more options available, thank goodness. And certainly there's a ways to go, but it's way better than it was, 10, 20 years ago. So talking to your doctor about what your particular options are, hormone replacement in one form or another is appropriate for many, many, many women, many, many more women than those it's not appropriate for. Let's just say that the science is there now. The idea that it is dangerous has been refuted, and
Yeah.
we're allowed to get treatment to make us comfortable now. And I think that's really important. And no matter how many ads you see on Instagram for supplements and all these other things, like maybe those could help, but they're not hormones. And so really talking to someone who specializes in that, whether it's an OBG who specializes in menopause, which they don't all, or a functional medicine physician who takes an even more holistic view, do that. My part comes from helping women understand what is happening and how to make sure you're not creating a rut for yourself. So, when your hormones start fluctuating in perimenopause, the estrogen fluctuations can make it hard to fall asleep. Progesterone makes it hard to stay asleep, and or the lack of progesterone, I should say. What starts to happen is those normal, maybe mild, sometimes undetectable arousals that happen during the night. We all wake up multiple times a night, whether we're aware of it or not. They start to become more pronounced. And whether you're waking up with a hot flash, which is, even harder, or just popping awake at 4 a.m. and feeling like it's morning and then not being able to go back to sleep, though either of those things can happen. And then what starts to happen from there, that's the trigger, right? That happens. And then you start to get upset about it. And you're lying there at 4 a.m. ruminating about, everything you've got to do the next day, how horrible and torturous this is, watching the clock, getting pissed off at your partner who's sleeping like a baby, you name it. And then, then come the compensatory behaviors like moving the alarm later, or what is really common with women is going to bed too early. So I see a lot of women who used to go to bed at, 11, 12, start going to bed at like 9, 10, 8. And what happens there is at the beginning part of the night, they're getting some sleep, but their sleep is more fragmented the rest of the night because they've already slept off most of their sleep need. So then the rest is all broken into pieces, sprinkled through the rest of the night, and it's really, really unsatisfying.
Wow.
So the hardest thing is to get a woman in that position who knows she's probably going to wake up at 4 a.m. to stay up to a normal bedtime and then do something like pick up a book at 4 a.m. to keep her mind out of all of the agitating garbage. Because if you do that, you fall back asleep faster.
Well, that goes back to your trust
Mm-hmm.
comment earlier, or your trust mindset, I should say, not comment. It's more of like an ethos and a mindset for you. And I think that for me, I've shifted my bedtime earlier. And I guess I'm almost guilty of like saying like, okay, I want to give myself more lead time so that I can fall asleep and get,
Mhm.
enough sleep because I get up. We have a puppy, so now we're up at like 5:30, 5:45 in the morning.
Mhm.
He's a joy with a slice of demon.
Yeah.
Um,
I've got one of those who's not even a puppy anymore, so.
oh, thanks. I feel so much better now. Thank you for that. Um, but but the thing is that it's interesting that you say that because that's exactly what I do. I didn't even tell you that, but that's
Yeah.
exactly what I do. But I guess that's really common. So I guess there's misery amongst, company. I don't know.
Well, if you're so let's say you just wanna think about what your sleep window should be, right?
Right.
So, if and by the way, what you said earlier about going to bed at the same time every night is wrong. So, you should
Great.
you should get up at the same time every day
Oh, okay.
because that sets your sleep clock. And then you will start to be tired around the same time every night. Your bedtime will be pretty consistent, but you want to follow your sleepiness to bed. You don't want
Yeah.
to
So
try
you're
to go
saying
to
a work.
bed before you're sleepy.
So you're saying to work back from when your wake up time is, not
Yeah,
work back from when you go to bedtime.
correct. So if you are waking up at 5:30 and you need, let's say, 7 hours of sleep,
Right.
you don't need to be going to bed at 8.
Right. All right. I'm not that bad.
Yeah.
Not that bad. I'm more than like 9:30. But yeah, that's
But if
interesting
you're not
because
falling asleep if you're not falling asleep, if you're going to bed at 9:30 and it's taking you an hour to fall asleep, you're going to bed too early. It shouldn't really take you more than half an hour if you need the sleep.
yeah, it takes me about a half hour. I think that's the other thing is that, I kind of joke, but I mean, I will say that like it is a conscious thing that I go to bed early knowing that it's going to take me about a half hour
Mhm.
to 40 minutes to go to sleep.
Mhm.
So there is some of what you're saying does apply to me, even though it takes me within that half hour
Mhm. Yeah,
window.
it would be interesting to push it a little bit and see.
Yeah.
The other thing to do is like, you know, go to bed and read and
Mhm.
just read until your body tells you it's ready to sleep. And sometimes it'll be sooner, sometimes it'll be later, but you sort of take the process of falling asleep and you give it to your body instead of trying to direct it, and it tends to work better that way.
What a reading in a like old school book or reading on your Kindle? Does that make a
So
difference?
it a Kindle is typically okay because it is not backlit. The light is not coming into your face. You should not be reading on an iPad or a phone.
So the Kindle app on like your phone or your iPad doesn't count when we're talking about a Kindle. You're talking like the
No,
actual
I'm talking
proper
about,
Kindle.
yes, and I don't mean to be product placing here, but
Yeah,
they
yeah,
have
we're not.
cornered the market. So,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I mean the device matters, and it's not just. I mean, it is the backlighting and the blue light going into your face, which the apps don't fully take care of. You still get blue light, which keeps you awake because it shuts down your melatonin.
Yeah.
But the other reason you don't want your phone or your iPad is because those things are so tied up with your day, and they trigger daytime feelings. It's very hard not to click around and just be like, "Oh, let me see what's waiting for me tomorrow," or "Let me see how much money I have in my bank account," or, "Did so and so, how many likes did I get on that post?" or whatever. Like, it's very hard not to do that stuff. And it's really important to keep that stuff in the daytime because otherwise you're just sowing seeds of stress and distress right when you need to be separating from that stuff. And you need to learn that all of that can wait till morning.
So one of the things that I talk about with my clients is that like today someone signed up with me and one of the things that she was struggling with because I've been talking to her for a while, like on and off, and she was waiting for the perfect time.
Mhm.
Like the whole perfectionist thing. It's like I need to get in the right mindset so I can like start the coaching and everything else. And I said to her, I'm like, look, I'm not, this is going to sound like I'm like really trying to sell you now.
Mhm.
But I said, what is legit stopping you from hitting the button? Because logically, you want this.
Right.
And it was this like perfectionism that was getting in the way of just being realistic and kind to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering if that's something you encounter where people, they're trying to get like perfect sleep, or they feel like they have to have certain things in order before they come and talk to you.
Well, those are two things, separate things that I see all the time. Yes.
Hmm.
So, you know, there's no perfect time to do this. There are bad times to do it. Like I wouldn't.
Fair.
But the stars are never going to align perfectly. And, what we're trying to do is kind of break into a system of bad sleep and create new patterns. So the system of bad sleep is reinforcing itself. You have a bad night, you sleep late, or you go to bed early, or you drink lots of coffee, or do all these other things, and or you're taking medications, those things are keeping this system reinforcing itself. And so we have to break into that. And, you know, it it does take some effort, and it can be uncomfortable, but it's not, the way I do this is not um draconian. I have to come up with a plan with my patients that they can execute. And if I'm telling them to do something that is excruciating or makes them feel like they're actually going to get fired or something, or they're
Right.
going to explode, they're not going to do it, and then we're nowhere. So,
Right.
you know, I at a certain point you just have to say, okay, I'm doing this. This is the priority, and we work with what you've got. You know,
Right.
and like, you can't wait until you move out of a studio apartment if that's 2 years from now. You just
Right.
have to do the thing, and we figure out how to get what we can get in the circumstances you've got. And typically, once you start to get traction, it's much easier to keep, to like, it's the same with what you do, right?
Yeah,
Like
it totally.
you get a wedge in there, and you start to create new habits, and then the reward comes, and that reinforces the effort.
Well, you
But
build confidence,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like that's essentially what we're trying to do. You're trying to build confidence in trusting the sleep, right? And
right,
I'm building confidence in that you can make the habit changes, some of which may be sleep related, that you
yeah,
want to make. Like, but you can make changes, but it's doing the little by little.
mm-hmm,
But there's never going to be a perfect time. To your point, there are times when, like, yeah, this isn't a good time
yeah.
to
Like,
try
you're
and,
getting married next week. No, we're not going
yeah,
to do this. You're going to
let's,
keep taking your Ambien until you get back from your honeymoon, and then we'll do
yeah,
it, right?
yeah,
I mean, like, that's fine. But or somebody's very ill, like
hmm,
your parents are failing or something, and like, maybe it's not the right time, and maybe you just have to be kind to yourself, um and get pharmacological help for the short
right,
term.
right,
That's okay, that's legitimate, and I support that, because it this is something that will be there for you, when things are slightly better or more
right.
stable. You find that middle ground of like, it's doable. It doesn't have to be perfect.
So, last question before we get into how people can find you.
Mhm.
How do, like, I've heard people struggle to get referrals to people like yourself, sleep psychiatrists or sleep medicine doctors.
Mhm.
Do you have any advice? Because it takes so long to get in to see people. Like,
Mhm.
that's, the nature of our medical system. For better or worse, that's just what it is. Do you have any advice that you can give to people if they're struggling to get their primary care doctor to listen to them, to give a referral? Because I don't know if people can just go and see you.
People can come and see me. They don't need
Okay.
a referral to see me. And, um, part of the reason is because I do out of network therapy. I'm not in network with insurance, which is
Right.
hard for a lot of people. And but I do that because in order to, I'd have to see like 3 times as many people
Sure.
to survive, and I that's not quality work for
Right.
I can't
Yeah.
provide. And, my feeling is that because it's short term, it's not, it's not an endless expense.
Right.
It is finite. Um, so, there is the Society for Behavioral Sleep Medicine. I do believe they maintain a database of professionals who provide this.
Mm-hmm.
If you just Google CBTI or cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, options will probably come up. There are a lot of online, like apps that do this with AI. Um, you know, I can't really attest, from my experience is that if you have a lot of anxiety about sleep, you probably should talk to a person
Wait, you shouldn't
because
talk to ChatGPT?
because the recommendations, again, like, the are not nuanced when
Right.
they come from an AI, from an app.
Right.
And your situation is your own, and your feelings are your own, and if you need help getting, actually implementing things, like, it's worth the investment to talk to somebody. That said, I do have my own online program that is like a video. It's not AI. It is, videos of me taking you through the steps to get your sleep on track, and how to interpret your sleep diary, how to do sleep restriction, how to strategies for managing your anxious thoughts and things like that. So that's designed to be an accessible and affordable and self-paced option for people, because not everybody does need full-on therapy, but if you do, you should really speak with a qualified professional.
Well,
So,
I think the other thing is that if you try something like an online course, like what you're talking about, then, and if that doesn't work, again, that's a conversation you can have in terms of
Mhm.
like, oh, I journaled this, and you can maybe, for lack of a better way of putting it, short circuit the process a little bit to kind of get
Yeah,
quicker and maybe get more bang for your buck,
yeah.
so to speak.
The other thing I wanted to say
Yeah.
about access
Yeah.
is that, if you need to see a sleep medicine provider, if you are snoring or you think you have sleep apnea or something else like that, basically, if you are snoring or maybe have sleep apnea, there are now a lot of telehealth options for that,
Oh,
where
right.
you can meet with a physician online. They will send you an at-home sleep study,
Mm-hmm.
and then um, the turnaround is much quicker, and they will help you get an oral appliance to treat it, or a CPAP if you need it. It's not the same as going to a big sleep
Yeah.
clinic at a major institution, but again, not everybody needs that. Your basic snoring, sleep apnea can be addressed this way. And then if it turns out that there's something, you know, more needed, you can get referred from them to, um, a provider who can do something more intensive or
It's
extensive.
kind of like now what they're doing with the colonoscopies, right? Like they have like the at-home tests that you can
Yeah.
do, and if like something gets flared up there, then they're like, okay, you need to come in.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
saves
This
you,
is way less gross.
yeah, way less gross, obviously. But it's good that there's more options so
Yeah.
that you don't have to wait to
Hmm.
get the care you need. All
And
right.
those providers do very often take insurance. And so
Yeah.
it's because it is, the goal is really access. And I think that's fantastic, because wait times at the major medical centers are months and months.
Yeah.
And sleep apnea is not benign. It's
No.
it's putting a lot of stress on your system. So getting it addressed sooner than later is really important. Plus, it's better for your partner.
Yeah. Yeah. For everyone. Janet, this has been such a great conversation. Where can people find you? I mean, you mentioned your courses. We
Mhm.
talked a little bit about, how to find you on Instagram, but let's reiterate all the ways that people can find you and engage with you.
So the best way to see what I have to offer, learn about my background, see what I'm up to, is my website. And that is nycsleepdoctor.com. And at on my website, there's a contact page where you can ask, about services, whether it's therapy or coaching. And then there's also a space for a whole section about the courses that I have online that you can just buy right there on the website. Um, I'm not particularly active on Instagram. Every year I'm like, this is the year I'm going to do it, or this is the year I'm going to get all my YouTube videos up, and I just haven't done it. And someday I will, and it's going to be great, but it's not there yet. So stay tuned. And
It's so hard. I was off of social media for 7 years, and then when I started Go Long, and that's where my demographic was, I had to go back on. And
yeah,
every day I'm on Facebook and Instagram, I feel like I lose a little bit of my soul.
yeah, I mean, I don't want to put out content just to be present. Like, I
Yeah,
want to put out good content, and
yeah,
that is a big effort. And it's
it
like a
is.
second job to make good quality videos that say something. And I haven't figured out how to make that happen with everything else I'm doing. But you never know. I'm empty nesting now, so maybe I'll have time. This will be the year.
Oh my gosh. Don't put that pressure on yourself.
We'll
I
see.
hired someone to help me.
Yeah.
Like, this whole background, like, of this thing that we're recording on, like, I had
Yeah.
someone put that together with like all the branding and everything else.
Yeah.
So it may be something that if it's something you do kind of want to do,
Yeah.
hire someone.
Oh yeah. I mean, I believe in professionals who are good at what they do because
Yeah. Like,
I am not a videographer or a producer, so
and you don't want to be.
no. I'm
So,
really good at what I do.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. Janet, I really appreciate you sharing all your wisdom, dispelling some of the myths, correcting an understanding that I had in terms of working back from when you go to sleep versus working back from really when you wake up.
Hmm.
I always love getting educated from people like yourself, and I really enjoy it. That's probably one of the more fun things about this, doing the show. So this is Going the Distance with Go Long. I'm Jill Consort Beck here with Janet Kennedy of nycsleepdoctor.com, and she's a sleep psychologist. So I want to thank JR Media Services for their assistance in producing this show. That's my producer who helps me out quite a bit. And if you have questions, get in touch. We are on all of the socials, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. So with that, remember, it's your life. Go the distance, go long.